After 50, stress does not just affect your mood, it quietly changes your heart rhythm. It fragments your sleep, it slows your immune response, and it does all of this through a biological process that most people, and many doctors, never fully explain to you. You are not imagining the fatigue. You are not just getting older. Your body is sending you very specific signals. And today, we are going to decode exactly what those signals mean and what you can actually do about them. Here is something that does not get talked about enough. Stress at 35 and stress at 55 are not the same thing, even if the source of the stress is identical. When you were younger, your body had a robust stress recovery system. Cortisol, your primary stress hormone, would rise during a stressful event, then return to baseline fairly quickly. Your body would reset. You would sleep it off. But after 50, that recovery system becomes slower and less precise. Cortisol does not drop back down as efficiently. It lingers, and when cortisol stays elevated for days, weeks, or months, even at low levels, it begins to affect three major systems in your body simultaneously: your sleep, your heart, and your immune strength. This is not a mental health issue. This is a biological cascade, and understanding it is the first step to interrupting it. Let us look at the first system. You may have already noticed this. You fall asleep without much trouble, but somewhere between 2 and 4 in the morning, you are wide awake. Your mind starts moving. You are not anxious exactly, but you cannot get back to sleep. This is not insomnia in the traditional sense. This is cortisol dysregulation. Here is what is happening. Cortisol is supposed to follow a predictable daily rhythm. It peaks in the early morning around 6 to 8 a.m. to prepare your body to wake up. Then it gradually declines, reaching its lowest point around midnight, allowing deep sleep to happen. When chronic stress disrupts this rhythm after 50, cortisol starts rising too early, sometimes as early as 2 or 3 a.m. Your body interprets this early rise as a wake signal. Which brings us to the second system, your heart. Most people understand that stress isn't good for the heart. What most people do not understand is the specific mechanism. Cortisol, when chronically elevated, does two things to your cardiovascular system. First, it signals your blood vessels to maintain a slightly higher baseline tension. The result is sustained low-grade blood pressure elevation. Not dramatic spikes, a quiet, persistent increase that compounds over months. Second, cortisol promotes a specific kind of inflammation in the arterial walls. It is not the stress itself that creates the risk. It is the inflammatory environment that chronic cortisol creates. After 50, when arterial flexibility is naturally declining, that inflammatory pressure has less buffer to absorb. This is not a reason to panic. It is a reason to pay attention, because the cardiovascular system is remarkably adaptive when given the right inputs. The third consequence is the one that tends to feel most personal, because it shows up in how you feel every single day. Chronic cortisol suppresses the activity of natural killer cells. These are the immune cells responsible for identifying and clearing damaged cells from your body. The result is a body that feels slower to recover. You feel run down in ways that do not have an obvious explanation. Your energy does not fully return after a night of sleep. The good news is specific. This cascade is interruptible, and the most effective interventions work precisely because they target the cortisol rhythm directly. First, the morning anchor. Within 30 minutes of waking, get natural light exposure, even 5 minutes by a window. This is the primary signal that resets your cortisol rhythm. For people over 50, this single habit has an outsized impact. Second, the physiological sigh. This is a breathing pattern. 2 short inhales through the nose, followed by 1 long exhale through the mouth. Research from Stanford's neuroscience lab identifies this as the fastest known way to manually downregulate the stress response. 1 to 2 minutes of this pattern measurably reduces cortisol in real time by activating your body's recovery mode. Third, consistent sleep and wake times, even on weekends. For cortisol rhythm after 50, consistency is more powerful than duration. Waking at the same time every day anchors your cortisol peak to a predictable morning window. This protects the low cortisol space at night that deep sleep requires. These are not small adjustments. These are direct inputs into your biological system. Your body has been managing this stress load quietly for a long time. The fatigue, the disrupted sleep, the slight blood pressure changes, these are not separate problems. They are one story, told by one system, asking for a reset. You now have the mechanism and 3 places to begin. If this episode gave you something useful, subscribe. Because your body is not failing you. It is communicating with you, decoded calmly, precisely, and without alarm. We will see you in the next file.